Good evening, my friends. I want to talk tonight about what functional human relationships are, because this is the other side of the coin of self-love, which is kind of the basis of all of my work, or my life really, and what my first YouTube video was about was self-love. And the more I've lived that out in my life, y'all are just kind of coming along a journey with me. Like, these videos are just kind of progressing as I progress and learn more and more from my life as I live in love and just see how it changes my life. And I learn a lot every single day. And one of the biggest areas I've found I've had to change, well, I mean, every area of life for me, but one of the biggest areas, both for me and for my clients and my friends and everyone I kind of associate with, one of the biggest sources of dis-ease, actual disease, like limbic system impairment, what kind of generates and perpetuates it, as well as just general dysfunction in life and kind of unnecessary drama and stress, is the way that we misinterpret and misunderstand what relationship is for. So the main kind of tagline for this video is relationships are for growth. Because relationships are meant to make us happy because they make us grow. Not because the other person's supposed to make you happy. The other person's supposed to make you grow, and the growth makes you more yourself and you become happier because you're more you and you've grown into more of the person that you're meant to be. That is where the happiness comes from. So a couple of the basic kind of tenets this video is based on are that the only thing that makes us happy is becoming all that we can be, which I've talked about many times, but just kind of putting it out there. If you've never watched a video of mine before, that's one of my basic core beliefs. Happiness comes from who we are and nothing else. And our connection to God. I mean, that's the essential part of who we are, kind of growing and becoming all that we can be, being all that we can be. It's our state of being that is our source of happiness and nothing more. And our lives are an outpouring of that versus life being a scramble to get happiness from something outside of yourself. And that self-love is the foundation of, and finding your self-worth in God, in the divine, and within yourself, in your own inherent worth. And this is kind of an outpouring of that. So this is the mathematical, this is a fraction. The point of this is to show that unconditional love of others is the common denominator of a functional relationship. And then the kind of what undergirds that is finding your self-worth in yourself and in God and in self-love. That is how, this is what a healthy relationship, a functional relationship looks like. And one of the things I want to point out is that functional implies that there is a predictable pattern. The word functional implies that. So next one. This is for me as much as for you. Implies that there is a predictable pattern with a predictable outcome. And in this case, the outcome is love, connection, and growth. So again, so this implies, again, another implication of functional, because there's so much talk of dysfunction in our world. And I do want to draw attention to that for a second, because ironically, and this is a function of the human brain, of the limbic system, which is my area of expertise, that the brain loves what's familiar. And in our world, dysfunction is familiar. So when you actually become a functional person, a healthy person, you start relating to other people in a healthy way, people think that there's something wrong with it because it looks so different. So this is one thing to be aware of if you go on this journey of changing your relationships and changing how you relate to other people and what your relationships look like and how you behave in your relationships. If you do that, it's gonna look really weird to other people, and other people are gonna think that there's something wrong with you in the way that you relate, like, because it's unfamiliar. It's kind of funny because everyone's like, the relationships are dysfunctional, people are toxic, people are narcissistic, but then if you actually do what you need to do to have a healthy relationship, they're like, that's also messed up, you don't love me. And it's like, you need to change your definition of love. So just be aware of that as you go about doing this. It's gonna look and feel kind of weird as you do it, because it is very different from the way we're used to doing things. And one of the things one of the biggest things I want to address here, or kind of point out, again, so functional implies there's a predictable pattern which should be found across the board. Like for a pencil sharpener to work, it needs to have like the certain way it functions. Like it needs to do something in particular so that it always sharpens pencil, right? Like the point is to have, that's the outcome you want, is a pencil that's sharp. And it does, yeah, I don't know how they're built, but like there's something in there that's like that. It does that, you know? It's got a predictable outcome, and it's functional. It functions. It fulfills its purpose to sharpen pencils. And human relationships are like that, where it does not matter who the other person is, who the two people are in a relationship. The basis of the relationship has to still be unconditional love. Like it's essentially, they're all essential. So this is what it is. Essential sameness. Which, again, a lot of people find that really repulsive, to think that your relationship with your spouse, for example, or your boyfriend or girlfriend or your kids is essentially the same as your relationship with, like, your brother-in-law or your best friend or your mother or your father or some random stranger you meet. They are all essentially the same. That is actually the case. Like, they really are essentially the same. And it comes down to this one. An unconditional honoring of the basic humanity, dignity, and freedom of each and every person. And yeah, again, I have a feeling this is not, it seems very odd. Like I was saying before, it seems very odd to think that it's the same, but it is the same. And in order for a relationship to function too, and as you might have noticed, when in the essential sameness card, it says functional, aka peaceful. Like we're seeking a relationship here where there is peace. And peace is your measuring stick in the relationship. That's the goal in a functional relationship. Or that's not the goal. The goal is love, connection, and growth. But your measuring stick is there peace in this relationship? So, yeah, it's very, very different. And I want to pause for a second. Yeah, because this is something I see a lot in women. And I don't know how this works for men. I tried to include as much as I could because I have sons and I have a husband. So, like, I tried to include what I can see playing out in men in my life in this. But I work with women. I am a woman. I work with men too. But, like, I've just seen for the female side, one of the ways that this gets very skewed is when women in particular have a habit of trying to take responsibility for the well-being of their family. They feel like it is my responsibility for you to be happy. But this can happen in any relationship. It's this basic thing, and I think this too is something that happens a lot in romantic relationships. You get this idea that you're somehow responsible for the other person's happiness. And one of the basic principles of life, I don't know if I wrote this down anywhere. Yeah, I did. Freedom. So love, real love, implies that you want the other person to be truly free. So even though you have it, like you're in a relationship with another person, you want them to be free, to be all that they are, to live in accord with their values, to fulfill their purpose, and to be their own person, which implies this is one, again, the basic belief. Each and every person is responsible for their own happiness and well-being. So you cannot make anyone else happy. So again, and so one example of this that will make it really obvious is if you've ever tried to make someone do something that was good for them, like tell someone they should, you should go to bed earlier, you should eat this, you should stop doing that, you shouldn't text while you drive. Like, you can tell someone to do something that's good for them till the cows come home, and they are not going to listen to you unless they decide that they want to do it for themselves, because that's how being human works. Like, we only will do something when we want to do it. And there's a basic freedom in that that's beautiful. Like, we are each responsible for our own happiness and well-being. So no matter how much you want someone else to be happy, you cannot force happiness on them. They have to choose to be open to it. They have to choose it for themselves. And this is something, again, I see it all over the place. People wanting someone else to make them happy, and then people trying to make other people happy kind of for them. It's never worked. It never will. And it is the cause of so much pain, is this idea that you need someone else to make you happy. You do not need anyone else in particular to make you happy. We need other human beings. That is absolutely true. There's a primal need for connection. Like, and you think of an indigenous culture, people in indigenous culture would be, I mean, if you don't have a tribe, you're dead. If you're out there by yourself, you're dead. That's just totally the case. You're just dead if you're out there by yourself. So it's a need, and this kind of comes down, I have a couple of here. So there's a couple different ways that we can connect with people. So connection is a need, but the key thing is you do not need any one particular person to be happy. You do not need any one particular person to be happy. That is key if you actually want to be yourself, live your life, and be free, is to understand that you don't need any one particular person to be happy. I know I'm saying that a lot because it is so not familiar to us, and repetition is one of the principles of neuroplasticity. As somebody I know says, repetition is the mother, father, uncle and brother and second cousin of learning. And it's like, yes, it is, absolutely. So how does it work then? How do we connect with people from a place of understanding that we need connection, but we don't need one particular person, that we are whole within ourselves? All of this comes down to ultimately self-love, which there's other videos about that from myself and out there. That's not what this video is about. It's, you need to come having already that sense of worth. This is about how connection works. So a limbic, immature, unspiritual connection looks like this: grasping, fear of abandonment, and proactive abandonment, like proactive rejection, because you don't want to be rejected, so you reject the other person instead, proactively. And then everything else I have written on here that I'm not going to even attempt to read backwards and upside down. Okay, the bottom here is what I've seen more in men, but again, I'm not a man, so that's the best I could do with that. And again, it can apply to both genders. I don't know how much of this is really, if there's any that's gender specific. I really don't know. So a couple of kind of examples of what this looks like. So grasping. This was me in a nutshell in the past. I was so needy and so desperately in want of someone to provide validation for me that if anyone ever liked me, I would go after them. I would be like, oh my God, this person likes me. And I would be so needy and want to connect constantly. And it was a mess. Everyone ran away because every human being intuitively knows that you cannot provide someone else's self-worth for them. And that's essentially what I was looking for, was my own self-worth in the relationship from the other person. So as soon as the people get that graspy neediness, they were like, I'm out of here. I know I've talked to some friends who say they've had the same pattern. So it's a pattern that goes across the board. The fear of abandonment and proactive rejection. I actually saw my son, who's 6, do this the other day. He came up to me and said, Mommy, my sisters won't play with me, so I want to get a no girls allowed sign and put it on my door. And I was like, honey, that's not what we do. We're not doing that. I'm not going to help you make that sign and put it on your door. But it was like a really cute, small, innocent 6-year-old way of saying, well, they won't play with me, so I'm going to reject them so I don't feel rejected by them, because then I was the one who did it. I put the sign on my door, and now I'm the one rejecting them, and I'm in power. I'm in control. And this is something that, again, I realized today on such a deep level, is that control is such an illusion. Control is such an illusion. Self-mastery is a real thing, but controlling other people and controlling our circumstances is a complete illusion, and that's part of what a lot of this is based in, is a desire for safety from controlling other people and our outside circumstances, instead of mastering ourselves and trusting God and trusting our own power. And then the predatory force, manipulation, violence. Manipulation is a big one. Manipulation is something a lot, because it's very sneaky, and a lot of people aren't aware enough to see manipulation when it's happening. So it's a very easy way for certain people to get what they want from a relationship in a forceful way without the other person being aware that they're being manipulated. So that one's pretty sneaky. So that's the negative side. That's people trying to get connection and trying to find that sense of safety, because this all comes down to understanding that we have a primal need for connection. We need to be connected in order to feel safe. So there's another way, thank God. There's what I call a mature, God-based prefrontal. So this is your prefrontal cortex, your higher functioning, human brain at play here, instead of your limbic brain, which is your 3-year-old reptilian survival brain, which is it literally functions at a 3-year-old level, and that's all it's got. It doesn't know how to do anything else. So again, your self-worth is founded in God here, and then you have a strong, stable sense of self. So it's funny, because the first half of this is about yourself and not even the other person. But the ability to really just enjoy your own company and be alone for long periods of time is so important to have healthy relationships, because that's an important part of being human. And while we all are, extroverted and introverted to different degrees, and I'm actually pretty close to halfway down the line, in the big scheme of things. I mean, we're all just so different. I don't love using labels because they're not terribly helpful, but regardless of how introverted or extroverted you are, being able to really enjoy that time alone with yourself is key to being able to have a healthy relationship, because it's a sign that you have a healthy relationship with yourself. And then heart-based connection here. So yeah, that honesty, vulnerability, etc. And then true connection, yeah, without attachment. So how that works is each person comes as themselves, freely. Even in a marriage, you come freely to the other person with a desire to love, a desire to honor, a desire to respect. And it's based on connection and attachment, because people talk a lot about attachment, and it's a very, very tricky word because there's a lot of unhealthy kinds of attachment. And the kind that is healthy is when two people come back to a relationship again and again and again freely because they genuinely love each other. They find something positive in that love, and can they find growth, they find connection. In marriage, obviously, you make a choice for a lifetime, but with your children, with friendships, I think friendships are a little bit easier to see this in because they're not necessary for survival in any way. Friendships are kind of extraneous in a sense. And so the best friendships are based on where people love each other, but like there's no need to be together, but you like each other, you love each other, and you find growth there. So you keep freely coming back to the relationship again and again. And so regardless of the relationship, that's what happens. You come back again and again. And an attachment, or a connection is a better word, is created based on free choice to love. That's healthy. And it respects, again, in healthy relationships, there's a lot of giving the other person space. That's like more than half of healthy relationships is giving the other person space to be themselves and live their life and respect them and come together when it's only, constructive and helpful for each party to actually be together in the relationship. And it's peaceful and it's not dramatic. And that's one thing I want to highlight, because a lot of people like the drama aspect of relationships. People get caught up in talking about, like, I've heard men be like going on about how a woman's just so batshit crazy or something, and they get like it's like an adrenaline kick from talking about something gossipy or kind of dramatic, and women love to chat about like boys and analyze all the things they say and blah 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 blah. And there's none of that happening in authentic relationships. And in authentic relationships, I want to give some more concrete examples here, because this is really, really, really important. So with children, and I had a situation with this with my second oldest daughter. When she was little, she had a lot of my limbic characteristics, and I wasn't doing DNRS at the time, and that really freaked me out. I felt horribly guilty every time she'd have a meltdown, because I was taking risks. I thought, well, that's my character trait, so I'm ruining her life. That was my limbic train of thought about that, was that it was my fault that she was messed up, that's from my perspective. And so every time she had a tantrum, I would completely melt from the massive guilt that I had and all this fortune telling that her life was ruined because of me. And I was going to therapy at the time. My therapist was like, Christina, she has free will. That's her life. She gets to make her own choices in life. You are not, nor can you be responsible for how her life plays out. And it's like this, it's actually a very pride-based thing, because you have this blown up sense of self that you can somehow, just because you're somebody's mother or father or whatever, that you have the power to just completely ruin their lives. No. People have free will, people can heal, people can change, people have their own choices, and they have an entire life ahead of them. You do not have the power to ruin someone else's life. That should be a relief to you. You cannot, people have free will. You cannot, just like you can't make someone happy, you also cannot ruin their life. You do not have that much power over the people. No one does. When she said that, it was like, oh, and it was just so much easier to parent my child as my child, and not this dramatic blown up thing in between us of, oh my gosh, I've ruined your life already. And that's also played out a lot of times with my kids, where I used to be more of a typical parent, and I would try to manage my children's experiences of life. I felt like it was my job. This is a common thing in American culture, American mom culture. I've got to make my kids have an experience. I've got to make my kids happy. I've got to make sure that they have all these boxes ticked and so on, so that they're developing properly. And there's just some weird intellectual idea about what it means to raise a child. And the thing is, like I said in the free will video I made last week, we learn from our parents by osmosis. We learn from them by mirror neurons. That's it. So essentially, all it takes to be a good parent, one of the biggest pieces of it, at least, is just being authentic and being all that you can be. And then you're automatically giving your children, like if you are wiring in or you have built in healthy core beliefs, healthy behaviors, a strong sense of self-worth, good values at your core, like healthy, strong, true values at your core, you're going to automatically pass those on to your kids by how you behave, because they're going to mirror the way you behave. Children don't listen to lectures. A lot of adults don't either. This is for people obviously who are actually looking for the information, but for the most part, people don't want to be lectured. They don't want to be and told what to do. People don't like that. They do learn from example though. So if you want your children to have healthy boundaries, exhibit healthy boundaries. Show them that it's okay to say, not right now, I need a few minutes. If you want them to have good manners, have good manners. And again, this is where being a parent is so much this process of your children are a mirror to you, and how they're behaving frequently is a mirror of who you are, and it shows you all of the areas you need to grow. But that's the beautiful thing about it, is that when we just lead by example, they get what we've given ourselves without a whole lot of effort. They observe it because we live with them constantly. The other area where I've realized this comes in is a lot of times when children are needy in terms of their emotions, and they're sad. A lot of times we take that over responsibility of trying, and this is with children, but this also can be in any other relationship. It could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it could be a sibling, it could be anybody, a parent. We feel like we're responsible to make someone else happy. But again, most people, if someone's in a bad mood and they're determined to be in a bad mood, you cannot cheer them up. I guarantee, I'm sure that everyone watching this video has tried to cheer someone up who doesn't want to be cheered up, and it does not work. It does not work. It doesn't work with kids either. And one of the biggest things I found that does work was deciding that I want to play. And when I'm on at the park, at the playground, and I'll try to get my kids engaged in something and they ignore me, and they just want to whine about how they can't do something. I'm like, well, I'm going to go climb that thing. And then when I go climb it, they're like, oh, that looks like fun. And then they want to join me, or I either that, or I just sit by the side and enjoy the sunshine and don't do anything and ignore them and they go play. But it's when you're trying to manage their experience that it doesn't work, you're trying, it's too much trying. We try too hard and the children feel suffocated and then they are unhappy and they don't want to play. It's better to either stay out of the way or lead by example. And so it's the same thing even with marriage relationships. It's amazing how often, if both parties in a romantic or marriage relationship are taking responsibility for their own happiness and well-being, you can just kind of go about your life and live your life. You interact when you interact, you have those and things are peaceful because you're not trying to do anything. You're living together and not trying to do something for each other that wouldn't ever work, like make each other happy. Would never work. Will never work. And this too is where, and this is the last piece I want to say here. Vulnerability is a very hot word right now. It's a very in thing. And being authentic is being vulnerable. That's all it takes. When you stop caring what other people think of you, you stop trying to manage other people's expectations of you, how they perceive you, so on and so forth. That is a form of manipulation. I did want to point that out. Managing others' perceptions of you is a form of manipulation because you're not showing up as who you are. You're not allowing them to see who you actually are. You're trying to make them see something. They're free. You're not responsible for the version of you that lives in someone else's head. You're responsible for who you actually are, the actions you take, the person you are, your moment-to-moment choices in life, and who you choose to be. You're responsible for that. You're not responsible for who anyone else thinks you are, because that's just an idea in somebody's head. It's not real. Who you are and what you do is very real. Other people's idea of you is not real, and if you are authentic for long enough, your authenticity will destroy their concept of you. Guaranteed. If you continue to be consistent over time, it will become apparent who you are. You don't have to tell anyone about it. If you just do it long enough, people are going to see it and be like, I can count on that person to be like that because they've been like that every time I've talked to them for the last 10 years. They're like that. That's who they are. So being authentic means we're showing up simply as ourselves, knowing and living out that we have nothing to prove, nothing to protect, nothing to defend, and nothing to hide. And when you live that way, you're showing up as yourself. You're not, and there is a nakedness to that, to living authentically, and that is where the vulnerability piece comes in. You're not hiding your heart. You're not hiding who you are. And that allows other people to actually enter into a relationship with you. Not an idea of you that you have, not an idea of you that they have, just you and them. When you get two people together who are being authentic, it is the most unbelievably beautiful, beautiful experience. I've had I have a number of friends who are that way, and it is just some of the most just heart-wrenchingly beautiful moments happen when people are actually owning both their greatness and their limitedness. Like, it's just all that you are, and just showing up as yourself. When two people come together like that, it is dynamite. It's beautiful. And that's what authentic connection is about. And when you have that experience with someone, you feel seen, you feel acknowledged and honored and loved and connected with, you're going to want to come back and have that experience again. And yeah, so vulnerability also doesn't require effort. It's simply part of being authentic. If you're being authentic, then you are by that nature being honest about yourself, all of your faults and all of your greatness, all of it together. This is who I am. That's it. If you want to engage with me, you can. And if you don't want to, you are free to walk away. That's what happens, though, is there is a detachment from the outcome. That's the healthy form of attachment, comes from understanding that any person you're in relationship with is free to leave that relationship at any time. You are free to walk away. Everyone, one of the most freeing things I said to myself in the last couple of weeks is, everyone is free to dislike me. I don't need anyone to like me. I like me. I love me. I'm enough. Y'all are free to dislike me and walk away. Like, I do not need any one particular relationship. I need connection. I trust that God will bring me connection. I trust myself. I have connection within myself with God, and that is the source of my main need for connection. And so everything else after that is an outpouring of the abundance I have from my relationship with myself and God. That's the source of healthy relationships. And this, when lived out, looks very countercultural. It looks a lot of times like you don't give a fuck. Because in a sense, you don't give any more fucks to trying to manage other people, trying to manipulate other people, trying to make other people happy, trying to be responsible for other people's mistakes or achievements. And you actually are just interested in actually just having a relationship with them. There's a whole lot more saying no to other people and being okay with other people saying no to you. That's part of a real relationship. If someone says no, you're like, okay, got it, great, thank you. And when you say no to them, they say, okay, got it, great, thank you. And there's no drama. It's beautiful. I'm gonna end here because this is probably pretty long. But again, so important, and so I don't know, I can't stress how important this is. I look around and the world is trying so hard. And our culture is trying so hard to do better, especially again with like romantic and kind of lifelong relationships. They're trying, but until you are completely okay being alone, like actually alone and being the source of your own happiness, you're not ready to be in a relationship. Because if you're looking for the other person to make you happy, that relationship is bound to fail. An other person can never make you happy. And yeah, relationships are about growth. They're about growth, they're about love and connection, but you grow so much in that process of learning how to love another human being. And it's a very long journey to learn how to love. And there's so much growth and beauty and real, like, it's like watching a tree grow and start to bear fruit. It's a long process, and it's so beautiful. But yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort. And it's really, really beautiful and really, really worth it. But it's definitely not what people think it is. And it's not exciting and romantic and dramatic and all the things people make it out to be. It's a lot of small decisions, and the beauty is so much in letting go of all the ideas and accepting what is, and learning to love what is, learning to love yourself, learning to love the other person, and learning to love the relationship that you can have with that person, no matter who that person is. That is breathtakingly beautiful. That's the kind of beauty and joy you can look for in relationships. It's the way they break you open and change your heart from the inside out. But yeah. That's my first foray into relationship. I hope that's helpful for some people and clarifying and pop busting and all that good stuff. Love you all. Happy New Year in a few days. and good night.